Google just updated Gemini, so now it can generate full files, not just the summaries or the drafts in a chat box, but actual downloadable documents and PDFs, spreadsheets directly into the conversation, which I think is going to help a lot of us who had previously been using Claude for that kind of a thing, or at the very least, being relegated to jumping between different tabs all the time to make those deliverables happen. Well, now Gemini can handle the whole thing from prompt to download without you ever leaving the chat. Let's say you type a prompt that says, write me a one-pager for a new client pitch about our marketing services. And Gemini just doesn't give you that text back. It generates a full Google Doc or a Word doc, whichever you want, and it makes it available to download right there in the chat. So you don't have to worry about any copy pasting. You don't have to open separate tabs or reformat or any of that stuff. And the supported formats for that include Google Docs, Microsoft Word, PDFs, Markdown, RTF, I think a couple others as well. It's great for writers and developers who need to pass documents along to each other, and they just want to cut down on that time it takes to have to copy and paste plain text into a Word doc. Super nice. Now for presentations like quarterly reports, I think it's going to be a big one for builders and consultants who are constantly putting decks together for clients. Now you can describe the presentation you need, and Gemini will generate it as a Google Slides file. And again, there's no switching of apps. There's none of that blank slide anxiety that we all hate. It's just a prompt and a starting point that you can actually work from right there in the chat. Additionally, they've also added a daily briefing feature that surfaces your most urgent tasks and your unread messages without you having to dig through everything manually. On top of that, they've added integrations with third-party platforms like Asana, Jira, and Salesforce. So now we have a much better way to integrate into our CRMs, just like in Claude with the MCP connections there. I personally use Asana and Airtable quite a bit, so this is going to be something that I will be testing for sure. Now, what if you're starting with a blank canvas and you just want to enter a basic prompt into Gemini, have it do a little bit of deep research, and then create that PDF file for you? What does that output look like? And is that something that's workable, usable? I ran a little test on this to find out, and here is the output I received. So all I typed in for this was, give me a comprehensive travel guide catered to families for the city of San Diego. I had it do deep research on this to pull from a number of sources because I didn't want to give it any sort of a foundational information whatsoever. I wanted it to just see what it could come up with. I will say the deep research phase, it gave me all the content that's in this PDF, but it wouldn't create the PDF from within that deep research phase. So what I had to do was I still had to copy the contents, put it into a new chat window, and then say, create a downloadable PDF. And so here's the output of that. And it's pretty bare bones, but obviously I would edit this significantly and change the tone and change the structure. And there's too much text and there's no visuals and all that. I totally understand that. I would also utilize Nano Banana and try to integrate some better visuals that way. I just said include the best attractions and best features for families in San Diego. And so it did that to some degree. It has some tables mixed in, some budget considerations based on that deep research. It has some information on pricing to the zoo and to different attractions. So it's pretty basic, but it did produce this within about 10 minutes of doing some deep research. And it's a few pages long. It's 10 pages long. And it's a good kind of basis for a downloadable PDF like this. I might apply some Claude design work to it based on the branding. So if I'm doing this we have a family YouTube channel, if I did this based on that branding and that theme, I would apply those elements maybe through Claude design. And then I would paste the Claude design markdown of that branding into Gemini and test that out. Or maybe I would just do this in Claude ultimately. I don't know. But it is good to see that Gemini is coming along a little bit in this regard. It's pretty bare bones, but I think at least it's on the right track. And so, of course, Gemini has really prided itself on being that workplace go-to companion, right? I know Microsoft has tried to do this with Copilot to some degree, but because we're so integrated in all Google products, from Gmail to Docs and Sheets and all that, and Google Workspace, of course, they've tried to really curtail this to the office environment. And so they're branding this as a workplace productivity improvement. I think there are subtle improvements in productivity maybe from this, especially if you're working between those Google products, but it's still pretty early to see how this will play out when we have tools like Claude that are creating pretty decent outputs currently as well. But if you're a user of Gemini and you want to figure out a way to cut down the disparate nature of going to different Google products, these updates could be useful for you. Thanks for watching, and subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.